Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. Happy Wednesday, everybody. My name is Justin Fensterman. You can follow me on social media, on X and also Instagram at Fensty Sports. And welcome to the Midweek Madness edition of Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Ray Flowers host this show Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. You get me right in the middle. Happy to be with all of you here. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great when it comes to all of our coverage. Football starting to wind down a little bit, but we still got a bunch of content going. I'm seeing those bets posted a lot during these days, over the last couple of days, getting ready for this weekend's football action. Tyler Beaker in our Discord. You can see it all in our betting sheets where we post our bets. You can find me in the DFS NBA Discord channel and the NBA betting channel too. I'm often hanging out in there writing bets, writing DFS. And by the way, you'll be able to catch me on Elite Sports with Ray Flowers filling in for Jeff Mans. Jeff Mans is tending to a family matter, and this is what a mafia does. This is what a family does when one of our own needs a little assistance. We all jump in. We all help out. It takes an entire village, and that is what we do. So with that, the reason why I'm saying all of that is because I'm going to be hosting the Elite Sports Show. I'm also on the write-up for DFS, so the write-up you will get a little bit later on. Bets will be coming in between, I'd say, 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll also be hanging out for Watch Along Wednesday, too. Welcome to basketball. You're a fantasy guru. If you're just jumping in, dipping the toe into the water for now. Well, Watch Along Wednesday is because my belief when it comes to how exactly we can interact and how we can serve you best is by being there for you. So every single week on Wednesdays from about 7 p.m. Eastern until about 9:30 p.m. Eastern, I'm hanging out in our DFS NBA Discord channel. I'm watching the games. I'm reacting in real time. I'm talking about some of the strategy that went into my bets and what we're seeing, because I firmly do believe that the process is key when it comes to learning these sports, whether it's DFS, season-long fantasy, or betting. You've got to watch the games, a big-time proponent of that. So that's why I do the watch-alongs that I do, because it gives us a chance to talk. Maybe you're struggling in certain areas. Maybe the lineups aren't really working out and you need a little bit of help. Well, I'm not a college professor, but I do have office hours, and that is exactly why we do these kind of interactive pieces to bring you, the subscriber, everything that we've got here. Armando Marsal is going to stop by in just a little bit to talk about the NBA slate. I want to thank the Bosco, Rich Mileto, for joining me all football season. Might not be the last time you see Rich on Fantasy Sports Daily, but he did a great job here with football winding down. A lot of our Wednesday coverage, as you'll see with our other days of the week, will become more baseball-centric. Well, today and every Wednesday, where we generally have, if not the biggest NBA slate of the week, a very involved NBA slate, it gives me a chance to talk a little basketball with all of you. And let's start right here, because the good thing is, unlike my podcast that I have on the Elite Plus Network, Fensty's Basketball Diaries, talks all things NBA, I've been spotlighting division by division over the last 5 weeks. I've got one division left, and it's the Pacific Division. So I'm going to be spotlighting that, talk about what's been working from a DFS standpoint, how these teams are rolling, maybe some moves that they're about to make. Hell, we're about to have the NBA trade deadline in a few weeks, and you've got a bunch of names that are swirling in that rumor mill. Naturally, Jimmy Butler and that whole drama, although it doesn't seem like Miami is even close to trading Jimmy Butler. And by the way, according to those reports, that if Jimmy Butler is not traded, he will rejoin the team, and that will be very awkward. I mean, how can it be? The guy wants out, and then he just rejoins, and to have someone who's supposed to be a star player not want to be there, I can't imagine how the rest of the team feels at this point. And let's not forget, with Jimmy Butler next season, he has a $52 million opt-in clause that he's about to leave on the table just to get out of Miami. Wild stuff. Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic from the Chicago Bulls. I'm even hearing Lonzo Ball might get traded. And if I'm the Chicago Bulls, I know you have plenty of guards, and I know you got to value this guy. He hasn't been healthy, but you ride it out with him. You've got a good plan with him, 20 to 25 minutes a game, and he's looking good, and he's a very good defender in a much needed defensive situation for Chicago. So that's why right now it's important to know who is involved in the rumor mill, because even if they're playing poorly, the coaches might give them a little bit more leeway to showcase these players. That, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why we've seen Zach LaVine, unlike last night, but before, take more command of the Bulls offense when they've got plenty of other players that can carry the rock, plenty of other players that can set up the plays, but you've seen more of Zach LaVine lately. So that's why when it comes to the Chicago Bulls, that's a team that we want to watch. It's a team we often go against. It's a team that's back on the docket tonight in a fantastic matchup against the Atlanta Hawks in what should be a very fast-paced game. Before I move on and go any further, I also want to show you this too, because I had this going. Let's see. Can I fix it? Boom. Right there. Our NBA tools at fantasyguru.com. We've got a bunch of them. They're regularly being updated. And what these tools do, they help you with DFS and betting. They also update automatically. You're constantly seeing them refresh. I want to turn your attention to the AI projections model and the Delta Force tool. The Delta Force tool, when you click that, and this is what happens when you subscribe on the site, you get access to all of these tools that we have, and they are accurate. I check in, do a little comparing. Not every tool is going to be 100% out there. Those that tell you that are completely lying to you and full of crap. But at the same time, I'm always looking at the end. I don't do it immediately, but after I'm done with my analysis, I tend to then look at even the props projections tool and see how close my own personal ballpark projection is to the model that we have there. And by the way, if you're not signed up, this is how you get involved in NBA. Get that MVP plan, DFS, betting, everything I just talked about. Watch along Wednesday. You get all the help that you need. I'll leave that up there for just a little bit here. fantasyguru.com/join-today/ with that, you're seeing that we have them for DFS too. And the Delta Force tool talks about ceilings, and that, let's say you've got a few players that are out. Well, next up, when it comes to an NBA rotation, it gives you that ceiling for maybe a value option. And it talks about what player has that potential ceiling, because we're in the volume projecting business here. And that's exactly what we are trying to do. And today I'm going to be spending time going over the slate at hand and talking about some of the plays that I'm into, some of the plays I'm not. Going to get Armando Marsal's take too when it comes to that. Also seeing Luis with a comment right here. What time does the podcast go up on the XM app? That is not on the Sirius XM app. Jeff Mans' One Man's Opinion is on the Sirius XM app. My podcast is just specifically part of the Elite Plus network at fantasyguru.com, and it goes up every single Thursday, most Thursdays. I'd say it varies, sometimes in the late morning, sometimes in the evening. So as soon as that's posted, you will see it as well in our Discord NBA channel. So you all can listen, because it's my game notes essentially, because I'm a big time tape worm. I love watching that tape, and I love being able to tell you all what I'm seeing that you might not see on a stat sheet. So that is what we have to offer when it comes to the NBA. It's a lot of fun. It's a wild ride. I would be safe to say that NBA betting and DFS is the hardest sport of the four majors. There's just so much variance, which is why we have ongoing Discord help from, let's say, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And then we have the watch along after that. But that's why we spend that hour plus in there with you, because we know there are a lot of injuries that all of a sudden just pop out of nowhere. We try to figure it out ahead of time, but same time, you can't predict everything. Things that we're also watching out for: playing time, players coming back from injuries. Are they going to be unleashed immediately? And that's where I'm going to be talking about this every single Wednesday here on this very stream. So let's talk a little bit about the slate and what we have tonight. On FanDuel, you have the entire 11-game slate. What we've seen, though, is DraftKings mess around with their slates all year and split off from the late night games. So DraftKings, you have 9, FanDuel, you have 11. What I do is I write my slate breakdowns based on the higher of the main slate. So even though me personally, I might play more DraftKings, especially on a night like tonight, I'm still going to be writing up plays for you on FanDuel in a very detailed doc that's coming out a little bit later in the afternoon. Has blurbs with analysis, value plays, and our core fours as well. So the games that we're looking at tonight here with the 6-point spread, the Knicks taking on the Sixers. This game right now, there's a lot up in the air because we don't know what the status at this point of Joel Embiid is. Paul George, I mean, all of a sudden the Sixers come out, yesterday, and they start ruling out players late in the afternoon. This is what I'm talking about. So that's when we had to make the decision. Do we start messing with some of these value options, or are the Thunder just going to completely kick their ass? And that's pretty much what we were seeing. And so that's why a lot of questions about Kelly Oubre. Yes, good in theory, but this is where we have to think about it. Everybody is seeing this news. Everybody is going after the value that is Kelly Oubre at that point, with just about everybody ruled out. That's where I'm like, maybe we go another direction, and maybe it brings on less ownership in a player or two in the 6K range that has a fantastic matchup. I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, as soon as we see an injury, and I get a major player injury is huge, but as soon as we see an injury or even half a team ruled out, immediately the focus becomes which $3,500 to $4,500 player is going to hit big tonight, is going to give us that 8X when we're looking for the 5X return, which is what I'm looking for in my core 4 plays, and I keep track. But when it comes to those plays, what happens as well, and I know this is more of a GPP mindset, but still you got to think everyone's going to be on that player. Everyone. Halliburton ruled out? Oh, everyone looking at Shepherd. Maybe the other option is you go, and what we did, I went more TJ McConnell. That was more my thing, thinking that Shepherd, because what happens then is you see the starting lineup come out, and there's an automatic assumption that that player is going to play and be locked in for 30-plus minutes. That's not always the case. Just because a player comes off the bench, and I get asked about this a lot, and I get the paranoia, because you would think that the starter has more control over their destiny. Well, sometimes the starter is just someone out there to set screens, someone out there to be a warm body for a little bit. And then what they're going to do is they're going to take that player out after 5 minutes and then start putting in a meaningful bench guy to play the final few minutes of the first quarter and then most of the second quarter. So just because a player is coming off the bench, I get the concern when it's a core play. Totally understandable, because that's a player at that point that I'm saying we got to get into our lineups. But when it comes to, does that translate to automatic production? The answer to that is no. And it leads to much higher ownership. And that's where we can zag when everybody else is zigging, the old cliche that goes. So that's why I'm not always on the, oh my goodness. It's great to have in the back pocket. Here's an example. Tonight, we just found out recently that in the last, I'd say, half an hour, that Goga Bitadze from the Orlando Magic is not going to play tonight. And with the Orlando Magic facing the Milwaukee Bucks, they've got a bunch of bigs. Doesn't impact Milwaukee, too. I mean, Giannis is still the main guy there. And as long as Giannis is in, and especially if Chris Middleton is in, then guys like Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis are kept at bay. So it does nothing for us on the Bucks side. But on the Magic side, what it does is two things. It makes me not want to necessarily core a Jonathan Isaac, but okay, 3,800. We've seen a few good performances. Milwaukee's got size. It's going to be tough. He's an add-on. He's not necessarily the core play. And that's where I don't want us getting too obsessed with that. Sometimes when especially we have a team that the star player is ruled out, but everybody else is in, we switch the core. I try not to change the core unless it's an emergency injury situation, because that's like last second tinkering with your fantasy football lineups. That cost me a title. I'm the stupid idiot. that had, even though it probably would have made more sense to have Aaron Rodgers in there looking at the matchups back in week 17, I had Bryce Young in there because all week long I'm thinking Young versus the Bucks, good matchup, improvements right there. And then the tinkering started, and then the doubt, and then the fear, and then the paranoia, and then I lose more hair, and then I make the switch, and it costs me the damn ring. So that's why when it comes down to injuries and how it relates to the core four, you'll see me change it up at times, but more often than not, you won't see it change. And that's because even though the injuries are going to open up opportunities at cheaper values, if there's a guy that's in my core at 6,500, at 7,500, doesn't change them, maybe gives us less ownership. And that's huge for me right there. And even though I'm more of a cash game guy with a cash game mindset, I do think of those plays that are still good for cash that won't draw a ton of ownership. And that's why it's kind of like a swirled cash and GPP. I've been asked, Fensty, why don't you write cash and GPP separate? I combine them in both. And if there's a GPP specific play, I make sure to log that in the article at bay. Let's talk to Armando Marsal, a big-time friend of Fantasy Sports Daily here, joins me right now. What's going on, Armando? It's great to see you, man.
What's up, Fensty? Happy to be on here, man. How's it going?
Good, man. It's good. We're doing well. Had a good few betting days here when it comes to our NBA product. And with DFS, it's been very up and down. We had been hit, as you saw yesterday, with that Philadelphia 76ers injury news. And we're sitting there, you, me, and Serge Singh in our Discord debating, do we now go after and go with the tide of the wave, or do we make our own force and take a stand and not necessarily force those Sixers options in our lineup like a lot of people would? And I feel like, Armando, all three of us were in consensus with not biting the apple that could be poisonous that was Philadelphia going into that Thunder game.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it's always going to be slate dependent, right, Fancy? Like yesterday, there was a lot of good value. Like you didn't have to. Like, yes, you could have had some exposure to that game, but you necessarily didn't have to. There was a lot of good value. There was a lot of other injuries that that players out and stuff like that opened up value for us. So I agree with you. Yeah, like I said yesterday, in Discord, it's yes, you can get exposure, but if there's better value, there's no need to chase that now just because the news, popped up. Everyone did that. A lot of these projections, a lot of these models were simply going to force you to get 3 or 4 of these guys in the lineup because of the minute projections, of the point per minute projections. And it's not always going to play out that way. You have to take other factors into consideration. The Thunder is good defense, right? Like we have to consider that.
One of the best in the league.
You bench basically bench players playing against a very good defense. I don't want to put all of my chips in that basket, or my eggs in that basket. I'm sorry. So yeah, it really is slate dependent. Look, they're on the slate again tonight. It's a big slate. You don't need to go there. Another tough match. You don't need to go there, right? Like that's the way I view these situations.
I mean, for me, it's just so much in the air, and that's what I opened the show with. It's just so much in the air regarding Philadelphia because we've got literally 4/5 of their starting lineup very questionable tonight. And that's why we got to kind of wait it out. And that's why Discord is just so important. We got a lot of injury news for this slate. Armando, you mean you're down in Florida, and obviously the drama with the Miami Heat here. So Jimmy Butler is still out of the equation, although he's apparently going to rejoin the team, and that awkwardness if he ends up not getting traded, which I don't think he's going to get traded. I think Pat Riley, old school guy, is going to keep his feet planted and not just force a trade to make. But regarding the night, he's out. Bam Adebayo's got an injured back too. And someone that I've been looking at a lot more lately as a nice value, even in cash too. What do you think of Nikola Jokic?
He's some of that. I think he's very talented. Like when you're looking at it, he's, in my opinion, underpriced for his role, right? Like he's someone that he's a fan who only played today. So he's someone that, again, like you're looking at someone that's going to get opportunities, someone that's playing a lot of minutes, someone that has been pretty good on a production base per minute. And his price isn't really moving all that much. So yeah, there's a role for him in this offense. The Heat like him. That's another thing, right? The Heat like him. This is a good organization. They prepare their players to play well. Like they put their players in good positions to succeed. He's someone that, so long as his price is reasonable and we're seeing his role stay intact like this, that I'm going to continue rostering myself.
Absolutely, and you can play the DraftKings night slate separately. And yes. I might as well ask you this, Armando. At this point, when it comes to the night slates and these split slates that we have between FanDuel and DraftKings, what do you prefer? Because I told everybody that I'm more of the lighter slate. So I'm going to be playing on DraftKings tonight. Obviously, I'm writing my article with FanDuel in mind. FanDuel plays are in my article that's going to be posted in a few hours. But still, I like that 6 to 8, 6 to 9 game range. I feel like that's been my sweet spot this year.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, that's always been my sweet spot. This evening, like it's a 9-game slate on DraftKings. I'm fine with a 9-game slate. Again, it sounds silly, but like a 7-8 game slate just is more appealing to me. I don't play on FanDuel all that much. I actually don't play on FanDuel at all. I don't like the way that they have it structured. I like the way that DraftKings has it structured. I know it's sometimes it's easier to just have one slate, but I actually like it. It kind of condenses each slate a little bit smaller. I like when you have those 3-game late night slates and then like a 6-game or 7-game early slate. Like, to me, like that, those are fun slates to play. I like to play both of those individually. Tonight, I'm not going to play that 2-game slate. I'm probably just going to play the 9-game slate. But it's very slate dependent as far as when I'm playing those late night slates and when I'm not.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. But hey, we were still answering questions.
Yes,
we got one like right at the buzzer.
It was like 9:50 or something. Listen, like that, right? Yeah,
we love you very much, but we're not just answering questions. And Armando and I are like this. We're very similar in a lot of ways with how we work. When you ask us a question, unless there's the immediate answer, which often it's not. It's between 2 sets of 3 that take a little bit of time for us to compute the math and give our own mental process to it. We need more than 1 minute to answer the questions. We get too many questions at 6:59 p.m. Eastern with the team about to lock a minute later. And I feel bad, man, but like I take it just like I take myself too seriously, just like I take everything in life too seriously, my job way too seriously. It's so hard for me to not take it seriously, just give that quick answer in 10 seconds.
Yeah, especially when it gets very complicated, right? When it's like a player or two that have been ruled out, and they've been ruled out for a while, but or they just get ruled out, and you're trying to, how is this going to, mess up the rotation? How is this going to impact the rotation? It's like, well, give us a second. Like we got it, like you said, you got to compute the math. But like it's just difficult, right? Like sometimes you have to give that quick answer, because there's no time to, give the in-depth analysis on that one specific. We say they really have a minute to make a decision. But I will always advise, if you're trying to make the best possible decision, don't give yourself a minute to make that decision. Don't give yourself 2 minutes. I would really thoroughly think about it, at least, analyze the situation for at least 5-6 minutes. You really have to go. I like to go look at the rotations, like when these players are out. I have, I use on-off, like, numbers where when there's a player off the court, when there's a player on the court, I like to look at that. I like to look at how it impacts the minutes, the usage, the assist percentage, the rebounding percent. I like to look at everything.
Can I stop you right there and ask you specifically, because I use an on and off tool as well, and this is good that we talk about. What do you put the parameters at? Because by the way, there are plenty of on-off tools all over the internet that you can use that are accurate. But what do you put? Do you put per 36 minutes, per minute, or per game? Because I've been doing the per game, and I lift the minimum possessions to about 15 to 20 when I look at a team.
I like to per 36 minutes. Sometimes when it's one that I'm very torn between, I will do I'll analyze each one. Like I'll go and I'll be like per minute, then I'll put per 36, then per game, and see if there's like something I'm missing. But my go-to is per 36 minutes. And I like to make sure that it's full games too. Like I set mine to it's full games and not a partial game, because a partial game could be anything, right? It could be a blowout. It could be, a good matchup, a bad matchup. Like I want a little bit more of a larger sample size than a partial game of usage.
And if I can respectfully ask, then why do you do 36 minutes instead of the full 48? Just out of curiosity.
It's always been the way honestly, it's always been the way I go to, because I think most people aren't playing 48 minutes.
Right.
Like, yeah. So I kind of like, I'm trying
Unless
to go
if you're on the Knicks. Only if you're on the Knicks.
Oh, yes, correct. That's only where you're playing upwards of 40 minutes. That's only New York. Only New York. But yeah, but since most people are not playing, I try to keep it to where like we're an average, I guess of the high minute guys, we're an average of what they're looking at.
Sure. No, it's a good question to ask, because a lot of us are looking, when we're looking into the numbers a little bit more at these tools. It's very important to understand usage. And by the way, that's what brought me to my De'Aaron Fox bet that hit last night. That hit in the first half was because Malik Monk was out, and we were hitting on Fox props early in the season. Kanahura, it was great, Armando. And then Monk got more involved in the ball handling responsibilities. Now you've got a three-way split of the offense between the guards and Sabonis. You take Monk out of there? I was feasting. I couldn't decide on if I liked Fox's rebounds better because he hadn't been contributing as many assists, or if I just go for the big cheese and the 10.5. I should have just wrote up both bets. Both of them would have cashed, but thinking that he'd have more assists plus the rebounding, which I knew he was going to be able to grab some boards because he's been boarding better. It all added up, but that's what the importance is of having a guy like Malik Monk out, who, when you're seeing him average 4 to 5 assists per game, that's huge when he's out off the court.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He was a core. So Fox was a core play for me yesterday. I think he was a core play for you as well, right? It was just a good spot all around. And when you mentioned it, right? Like when there's a key piece missing from a team, and you know where that production is going to go to, it's kind of easy to predict it. Like I just ran the numbers now while you were talking. So I ran Kyrie without Luka, right? And the numbers, the difference between per 36 and per game, I mean, there's barely a difference.
Okay,
right? The minute on per minute, it's very, very close as well. So like, there's not a major difference. But he is obviously the one that gets the highest. He benefits the most of it. But to answer your question, yeah, it's basically that when you find that player that's going to see those opportunities, you see how that's why I don't just look at usage. I look at scoring. I look at rebound percentage. I look at efficiency percentage. I look at rebound because, like you said, it's going to add to the peripherals as well, not just to scoring. It's going to also add to the peripherals when there's a rebounding, a guard that rebounds or a forward that rebounds a lot, those rebounds have to go somewhere, right? Like someone else has to pick up those rebounds. And with this is why I like using this tool, because with this, you kind of see whose rebounding percentage goes up on a per minute basis, who does it on a per game basis. So yeah, I look at that every day. I'm going to be looking at that today. And there's going to definitely be a player in my core because of that.
Yes, 1,000%. Oh, you're on the cheat sheet today?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it was Surge, but
I really did. So hold up. I have to pull up the schedule now, but I already worked on it. No, it's
Am I right?
Oh, it's me.
Yeah, I'm wrong. I should know. Why am I battling the schedule maker of all things?
Well, you know what? You got me. Like you have me second guessing myself at that for a moment there. I'm like, oh, dude, did I just do that for nothing? I mean, I haven't put cash games and GPPs yet. I'm just basically have the foundation done. I do have the player pool. Obviously, this is very news dependent. There's a lot of news that we're waiting on here today. A lot of impactful news, I think. So, always will change. And I agree with you what you were saying. I generally don't like to change my core, but I also don't give a core 4 until I'm confident with the core 4 where I know it's not going to change, right? Like you don't want to throw in a core 4 just to throw in a core 4. So sometimes you'll see 2 players in my core, and it's not because I don't want to give you a core 4. Is I'm still waiting on news like everyone else. And there are good pieces that I like, but there might be better pieces that I feel better about, and I don't want to confuse anyone.
Right. And I'm with you as well. And I put in some TBDs. And again, that's why you should want to come to Discord, even if it's just for a few minutes to see what's going on. We're always going over the big injuries there. This is why NBA, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an NBA guy. I'll say this. My favorite fantasy sport is fantasy football. I've said this a million times. My favorite sport to go watch live, baseball. So there's no bias there. But my favorite sport overall is basketball. But let me tell you, and I'll say it again, DFS NBA and NBA betting is the hardest freaking sport out there because of what we're talking about. Because right now, 6 hours and change before the slate locks, here are the following questionables: Towns, Embiid, Maxey, Jalen Johnson, Bam Adebayo if you're on FanDuel, Paul George, DeAndre Hunter, Nick Claxton if you're on FanDuel, Ben Simmons if you're on FanDuel, Ayo Dosunmu. We just found out Goga Bitadze, some of the Warriors guys and their bigs, Chris Middleton, who's questionable every single freaking night. There's just too much, and to give a core, that's where we're putting ourselves in a little bit of a bad spot until we know a little bit more injury news. And I got to ask you, Armando, speaking of someone who, once I feel like his minutes go up, this is a guy that we can utilize in our core until at least Franz Wagner comes back. Paolo Banchero, we have no Goga Bitadze tonight, and in his first game back, he scorched Milwaukee, but he did it in a very efficient way, and we haven't seen him really hit 30 minutes in the couple of games he's been back at, 9,100 tonight. Can we trust him in a good matchup with barely a front court, or do you think Milwaukee is good enough to be able to adjust 2 games later and maybe limit him enough where he doesn't hit his value at about a projected 28 to 30 minutes?
For me, I'm okay with using someone like him in tournaments, right? Like, I think that's where we have to. I heard you talking about earlier, GPP terms in the articles. You include both. Like, for me, tournament plays, because the minutes issue, and you just have to go with an average on a per minute. Like that's what I like to do, an average on a per minute, what he averages per minute, and is he going to get there in the 28, 30 minutes, and not at that price tag a lot of the time. Like you mentioned, it has to be a super efficient game. He's done it. We know that, but it's a Milwaukee team that can adjust. They might not be able to adjust. They might not be able to stop them, but they can adjust, and I just don't want to chase that production myself at those minutes on such a big slate. Like that's my thing, on such a big slate when there's so many other, in my opinion, great game environments. Like there are a few games that for me are very difficult not to have exposure to this evening. And I just don't want to miss out on some of those other opportunities. And there are some high price players in those games that I like very much.
Another player that's questionable that I mentioned when I just ran down some of the injuries, Armando, is a player in a very appealing game tonight. It's going to feature a Speedy Gonzalez lightning-like pace, and that's with the highest total on the board at 244.5. The Hawks and the Bulls. Close spread. The Bulls defense absolutely sucks. The Hawks defense a little bit better, but not much. The pace is so healthy. And this is a good time to ask you, Jalen Johnson, we don't know his status at this point. He's missed a few games with an injured shoulder. If you find out that he's active and he's not on a minutes restriction, or we don't get the note that he is going to be restricted, would you trust him in this matchup, first game coming off the injury?
Again, another tournament play for me. I love this game environment. You're talking about 2 teams that are top 3 in pace. You mentioned it. This is a high total game, a very low spread, so it should be competitive. We've seen these teams battle out before. They've had some good games, some good performances. There's only one core play I have tonight. He's in this game that I put in the cheat sheet. But yeah, I think in tournaments, like players coming off of injuries, I generally try to avoid in cash, right? I think it's just, and it's all about your risk, how much risk tolerance you have. If you want to take that kind of risk, I'm not going to talk anyone off of playing Johnson in this kind of game environment, in this kind of matchup ever. But understand you are taking a little bit of a risk. Even if they announce that there's no minutes restrictions or anything like that, I always think for me, that first game back, there could be some rust. There could be any issues that pop up, So for me, I tend to avoid these kind of players in cash games. In tournaments, I'm all in because if you want to take that risk, you take that risk.
I'm trying to figure out who the one core play is. I've got one of 2 names here. Can I have one guess?
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with Nikola Vucevic.
No.
It's Trey then. It's Trey.
No, I like Trey too. It's Kobe White.
Okay. All right.
He's absolutely smashed in this matchup. Like, so he's had 2 games of over 40 DK points. I think the lowest scoring is 36, 37. I mean, at 6,500 on DraftKings, I'm going to play him. You can pencil him in for upwards of 30 minutes, 32, 33 minutes, 34 minutes. This is one of those games like when you have such these two teams are so bad defensively, and they play so like this could be an overtime game. I'm not saying I'm projecting overtime, but these are the kind of games that you like look at and you're like, this could end in overtime. And I mean, you could get some seeing games here out of some of these players.
So I love it, and I think especially that Kobe White, more of a GPP mindset compared to. So here are my two minor issues. It's solid. It's solid thinking, and it's a great game to utilize just about anyone. The Bulls have a ton of guards, and here are my two problems. Number one, Ayo Dosunmu might play. He's questionable. So I'm not saying that completely takes out Kobe White. That adds more hands that are going to be on the ball. And also something else, and you can tell me if I'm thinking too deep into it. I've seen rumors about Lonzo Ball being traded. And when I start to see that this close to the trade deadline, it makes me wonder if Chicago will put him out there a few minutes longer just to showcase him a bit to other teams. And it's not only Kobe White, but I worry about Josh Giddey. I worry about all these guys. If Dosunmu sits, then I'm less worried. But let's say, worst case scenario, everybody is active from that guard side from Chicago. Does that still not concern you?
No, because what would be your okay, let's say that Ayo is indeed active tonight. What were your projection minutes for someone like White be? For me, it's still 30, right?
Yes, it is still 30, yes.
So he's averaging 1.01 fantasy points per minute. You're looking at 30 plus fantasy points.
You're looking at close to 5x right there.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to doubt you at all. I'm just the Bulls. I love the Bulls so much, but they've burnt me so many times because just when I think I'm on Josh freaking Giddey, we're hitting bets every single night. Now Zach LaVine is magically bringing up the ball more and rebounding like a madman. And it's been so hard for me outside of one or two guys being out from this backcourt. It's been hard for me to figure the Bulls backcourt out.
Yeah, it always is difficult, right? But when you look at it, so I'm looking at some of the numbers now. So like when you look at Giddey, right, and both Giddey and White are very volatile, right? And I think in certain matchups, you can make them cash viable because of the matchup specifically. But on most nights, they are going to be GPP kind of plays. When you look at the season, so Giddey, when you're looking at points versus expectations, he's exceeded expectations just 48% of the time compared to his salary. When you look at White, it's even less. You're looking at 42% of the time. So you're talking about a lot of volatility. Now, you look over the last, 10 games, Giddey's at 70%. So he's been much more consistent. So maybe he's the one that's going to see the biggest impact. But what your concern is, with Ayo potentially back. But, I think when you're looking at this game specifically and this match specifically, I'm okay with White in cash. Like Giddey, I still feel more of a GPP guy, kind of play. But White, given his price tag, if he was 69, 7K, probably going to say, okay, yeah, let's leave him for GPP. But at 6,500, I think you could get there because you're really just looking for 32 and a half DK points if you're looking at 5X. I think that's very attainable in this specific matchup.
Who are some of the plays that you have circled as possible? Maybe even not players that you're building around, but players that are more on the higher price side that you would consider writing up for the cheat sheet.
So in the cheat sheet, I have several guys. Like look, there's certain players that when they're on the slate, you gotta consider, right? I think Jokic is one of those players, right? Yep. I'm keeping a very close eye on Trae Young. Like, I'm assuming he's going to play here. Yeah, he's someone that's high priced that I like a lot. LaMelo Ball is very interesting to me. Like, he's so interesting to me in this matchup. I really do like him here. So he's one of those players that I'm looking at, high priced as well. You mentioned Giannis earlier. He's, in my opinion, someone you can always consider here. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Depending on what opens up as far as value, I generally take a very balanced approach. So I'm probably only going with one of these guys in my lineup. As of right now, I'm thinking of stacking that Chicago game. So it's probably going to be Trae Young.
Yeah.
If he plays. But again, it's very dependent on what opens up for us. Like yesterday, I was able to fit in Fox and Jokic. Like there's going to be some nights where you can fit in a couple of these guys.
I fit in Fox and Durant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's enough value tonight right now where you can go with two of those players, but I'm probably just going to stick with one and go with a little bit more of a balanced approach because there are a lot of those guys in that 6 to 7, 6 to 8K range that I feel very good about here. Even some guys a little bit like just a little bit over 8K that I like. Like Levine is someone in that same game that we could, that we could just talk about or whatever. He's kind of turned it around as of late, playing just better basketball. But again, it's do you want to go to Levine or do you want to get White? Or are you playing two of these players? Like in these bigger slates, how comfortable are you playing, 4 or 5 players from the same game?
I'm fine in this particular game because the spread is low and because the Bulls defense just sucks. And so Atlanta could be still missing Johnson and it's still going to be a competitive game. I'm fine with going 3 here. And the big question is, I love both Ball and Young very much. I'm starting to, because when I was looking up Brandon Miller before, let's just say, his price just turns me off, man. It just does. At that point, I'd rather get the extra $2,000 and spend it on LaMelo Ball and know that I'm getting full usage of this guy, or take that value and go down to Bridges, who I feel is very trustworthy, because there's just a lot to like here. Mark Williams, someone who's a 6K center that is a great per minute guy that doesn't need 30 minutes to hit 5-6X on a return in this matchup.
Yeah, so I have Miller included in the cheat sheet right now, but I'm viewing him more of a GPP option.
Yes.
Where you're hoping for a seeding game in a favorable matchup for him, but not someone I want to build around. I agree with you 100%. He's not someone I want to build. I prefer Bridges. I prefer Ball there. Just I think you're taking a $400 discount on Bridges. I'll take that because I feel like the floor is a little bit safer than Miller's. And I feel like the ceiling is just as high, if not higher. And as far as Ball's concerned, it is a significant price, a difference between him and Miller. But again, it really depends on your roster construction. I think you can get away with Ball and Trae Young. I don't know if I'm going to do that because I do like a lot of guards. I do like a lot of value at the guard position tonight. So I don't know if I'm going to be, if roster construction is going to allow me to get there. But again, I do think if I'm choosing between these players, these Hornets players, I think it'll be Ball, Bridges, Miller in that order between those 3.
Let's talk about the Pelicans for a minute. Coming off a back-to-back, I know we haven't seen an official announcement, but I'm kind of going into my write-up thinking that Zion Williamson isn't going to play tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play. I don't think so. I didn't include him in my cheat sheet, and I kind of added some players there that I like.
Like DeJounte Murray. I love DeJounte Murray.
Correct.
If especially, I love him anyway, but if Zion doesn't play, more time with the ball. That's all this guy needs. Can put up volume production. If Zion sits, then I'm going to be giving some reasonable consideration to DeJounte Murray, if not a core play, that B-list play.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like right there, this is a perfect example. Like you're paying 8K for Miller at the guard position where you could get Murray 8,400.
Right. It's not even a question.
I really like Trey Murphy a lot here as well. Whether Zion plays or not, I mean, Murphy has really given us a strong floor and has shown a lot of upside lately. And this is a good matchup for him, I think. And his price really hasn't gone too high where it's uncomfortable to roster him. So he's someone that I kind of flirted with the idea of making a core play tonight myself as well. But I do think if he does not make my core play this evening, I will say this. I do think he's a very, very strong option. And I love the fact that, I like his shooting guard, small forward eligibility. It gives you a lot of flexibility with your roster construction.
I hate to do this to you.
Oh, here we go. You're not a Murphy guy tonight.
Worse.
Oh no.
We just got some injury news.
No, don't tell me this.
The following players are now questionable, pretty much Xing out the previous 15 minutes of our conversation, or 5 to 7 minutes. Lonzo Ball, Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, all questionable tonight.
Oh my God.
Bro, that just stinks. It's that just stinks right there, because you want someone from that game. And now it's hard to core. Do you core questionable players?
No, I can't. I just literally removed the. I only have one description. I removed it right now. I removed the core play from Kobe White.
He can still play. But this is the kind of stuff that we deal with. It's crazy, man.
Well, the good thing is, well, no, it's not. They're 8:00 game, so it's going to be all right. So this is how I'm going to go about it tonight, and this is how I approach it. I'm not going to have him as a core play. I view him as a core play. This is Kobe White we're talking about, right?
Yep.
So if you're listening to this, right, I view him as a core play. I'm not going to list him as a core play. If he plays, consider him the fifth core, right? I'm going to go with into tonight with him in my lineup, and I'm going to be on my phone until we receive that official news, even if it's 7:59 p.m. And I'm going to have a backup plan. That's the one thing. You have to have a appropriate backup plan.
You need pivots.
Yes, you need pivots. Sometimes I have a 3v3 swap or a 2v2 swap ready to roll if I need to. Like, I have that pre-planned. And maybe that's something we could talk on another, show, how you kind of plan these things. But I always like to have a 2v2, 3v3 kind of swap in case I need to make changes, especially for the later games at night. I usually leave like that guard, the forward, and utility. Those positions, I kind of leave them open if I need to on specific nights. And I make sure I have several different pivot options. And that's what's going to happen here tonight with White. I still view him as a strong play so long as he's good to go. If he doesn't go and all three of them miss, I think we have to take that kind of risk with Giddey, right? I think you have to.
I was going to say, man, if Kobe White, especially Kobe White, but if Kobe White and one of Ball or Dosunmu sits, I may have to core Josh Giddey tonight.
Yeah, and I could run the numbers right now on the show while we talk about other things. I could run the numbers and look at the usage here and everything with those three guards off the court and how that impacts Giddey. Like, we could do that right here. We could do that exercise here on the show. That way people see, the impact. But still running here on my end. But either way, but I'm going to do it with the understanding that regardless, Giddey is a volatile player. Like, he is a volatile player.
But everyone under the sun at that point will pay up the bigger price point for Zach LaVine, thinking that he'll just get everything. But I'll be thinking that LaVine will be able to take all the shots under the sun. But those rebounds and assists, that's what we're focused on in this situation, especially for Josh Giddey.
Correct. Let me pull it up. I'm pulling it up on a per game basis for us.
Yeah, I'm looking it up too. I mean, it's wild how the usage changes, but this is what we are talking about with a team like Chicago. This game, we want pieces from this game. Last night from Atlanta was last night. Last night, some of our players from Atlanta absolutely sucked. I had Capella in the core. Okonkwo broke the slate. You can't predict that stuff. There's a minute split there. You would think, I thought that Capella, maybe not to the scoring extent, but the domination extent, I thought it was going to be Capella instead of Onyeka last night. So that's what happens when you go after a center in a good matchup that's in a complete timeshare.
Yep. Hey, look, so I pulled it up here. So actually, we might want to go to LaVine here. So LaVine sees a 6.2% assist rate increase. That's a pretty significant increase there. Actually, the second highest on the team.
Who do you have sitting in those parameters? Do you have Dosunmu and Kobe White sitting?
I have Kobe White, Lonzo Ball, and Dosunmu.
Oh, okay. So you have all three sitting. Okay.
Yeah, we got Patrick Williams, 14.36 assist rate increase and a 2.9% increase in rebound rate. And then when you're looking at point per minute, this is where Josh Giddey is. He gets almost a 0.1 almost. Which is, when you're looking at it, it might sound small, but it's top 4 in the team. I mean, some of these other guys aren't playing a ton of minutes. That's why I'm not saying them. Horton Tucker's another one that benefits here.
Horton Tucker is interesting. Patrick Williams,
he sees a very high usage rate.
I don't know what the deal is with Patrick Williams. He's such a non-factor on this team. They signed him, Armando, because of his defense, and this Bulls team lets everybody in the lane. You could score on the Bulls.
Yeah, correct. And so I think Horton Tucker, like, he becomes let me see something. he becomes an interesting value play. So he sees a near 5% usage increase in these instances, right? And then what would you project minute-wise for him? Like 25, or is that too much?
I would say 20 to 23 at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where some of these options on the Bulls now become GPP. So this Hawks-Bulls game, we want full exposure to. We just need to know who's in and out. I don't want pretty much any exposure to this Knicks-Sixers game because if unless all of their players are actually in for Philadelphia, the Knicks are also a little bit banged up too. So the Knicks might play the waiting game to see what happens with Joel Embiid to determine Towns and maybe even Brunson. The one play I like from this game, though, Armando, and then we'll wrap it up. Josh Hart, he's just someone that's price is appealing in that, mid 7K range. He's a mega multi-category producer. He plays a lot of minutes. If the Knicks are up big, he's normally the one player that still withstands the minute chopping and stays in the game. Even though the pace is very unfriendly in this, it's going to be a slow one between the Knicks and the Sixers. We don't know who's going to be in, but if we're game planning this right now, how do you feel about Josh Hart? Because that's someone that, while is not a core play for me at the moment, that's someone that I know has a little bit of a safer floor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and his price tag is very appealing. He triple-doubled against them last time they played, didn't he? I think, or he close to a triple-double the last time they played. But I remember he did have a big performance the last time he faced off against Philly. Hart is someone that whenever he's on the slate, I always have like a little soft spot for because of what you said. I feel like he gives you a great combination of a nice, pretty safe floor, as well as a pretty significant ceiling. And his price kind of stays in that range where it's comfortable. And like I mentioned before, like I generally my roster construction tends to be very balanced, and he tends to fit every kind of roster construction I go with on a regular basis. The only concern for me is the game environment. I'm just not a fan of it here for him, and that's my thing. There's a lot of good game environments, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to keep him off the player pool by any means. I do think that he's very viable. I think he's a good cash game option. I think he's GPP viable as well. And he's just one of those players that gets the job done pretty much.
No one's going to be on him, Armando.
No.
Everybody's going to be trying to figure out who's the value guy on the Knicks. Do you go after a Deuce McBride or a campaign? But I'm out of any of these Knicks starters, if there's anyone we can trust to still play in a bad environment, in a blowout, Josh Hart is that guy, and nobody's going to be on him tonight, except for all of you that are hanging with us right now.
Yeah, I have it projected for 5% ownership right now. So we talked about Kobe White and Giddey exceeding expectations throughout the season, right? Talk about the big difference. Josh Hart, according to based on his salary, expectations have been exceeded 64% of the time. It's much more consistent, someone you can rely on. So yeah, I like that call. I think like if you're looking at a slate edge, he could be your slate edge tonight, right? Because he's going to be that low owned guy that should return 5x, has 6x, 7x upside, and you're going to come in at sub 10% ownership.
He's just someone that I've been utilizing in a lot of my cores lately because I'm with Armando in a lot of ways. I've given some stars and scrubs ones. Last night's core, stars and scrubs. The stars worked out, the scrubs not so much. But I like those balanced cores, and that's where Josh Hart is a perfect bridge player. Jalen Brunson is probable. Let's say he gets downgraded and goes out. We're all over Hart at that point, even in a bad game environment, even in a potential blowout if Philly's missing Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George. But this is one of those games that even though the environment's bad, we still can't skip it because there is some mid-range value there. Armando, why don't you tell everybody what's coming up on the site for you for the rest of the week? You have your hand in just about everything here.
Yeah, so I'll be updating the cheat sheet. Obviously, I have the cheat sheets, the foundations there. We're going to make some moving pieces, obviously, with this news. There's going to be some additions, subtractions from the cheat sheet. So you'll catch that today. I'll be doing the player rankings for this week with Jeff out. So I'll be doing those this week. Hopefully, by the end of the day, those will be up. We got my Mind of Marsal podcast coming out tomorrow. My DFS breakdown for the postseason, the NFL postseason data goes live. On Friday, I'll be joining Bob Harris on SiriusXM tomorrow.
There we go.
Yeah, 3:20. And then I'll be joining Ray on Friday. Time to be determined, but it's either going to be 4:30 or 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So you'll catch me on SiriusXM as well tomorrow and Friday. So that's what you got the rest of the week for me. But at Discord as well. I'll be at Discord all day, every day. Like I say, even when I'm not on the slate, even when I'm not on anything, tag me. I'll go in there and happily answer any questions.
Who do you have, Ravens or Bills? Maybe the most excited I've been for a football game in all season long.
I think the Bills win that game, but it really, to me, and I said this with Ray yesterday, Fensty, I think it's whoever makes the fewest mistake wins that game. So the team that does not turn the ball over, wins that game. I think that's going to be the best game of the week. I think it's going to be a very close game. I'm excited. Like I think I saw something. I think I saw something on TV or a post saying that this is the first time that the top two MVP, like the number one and number two, like MVP candidates are facing each other in the division round. So, I mean, these are two really good quarterbacks. I'm so pumped to see it. This is the fun time of football. You got really good football on TV. You got competitiveness. So it should be a good one.
Give Armando a follow on X at Armando_Marsal, Marsal. You'll hear him on Sirius XM on tomorrow and Friday in the afternoon. I'll be on filling in for Jeff Bands along with Ray Flowers. 1 hour of football, 1 hour of baseball, 1 hour of basketball from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. And then from there, I go right into the Discord room with this guy right here,
yes,
Armando Marsal, and I'll be putting out some bets by then at that point. And then after Discord, it's Watch Along Wednesday from 7 p.m. Eastern to 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Maybe, just maybe, even if it's for a quick hello, Armando comes in, just so we can bring up the celebrity sizzle factor of the Watch Along, as Armando is very loved because he's an awesome guy and he knows his stuff. Armando's going to be joining me every Wednesday. You also see him on this stream and hear him with Ray Flowers too. Armando, thanks again for stopping by.
No, thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure talking hoops with you, man. So looking forward to doing this the rest of the season.
Every single Wednesday, it'll be me and Armando talking a lot of NBA. Get excited. Get ready for betting. Get ready for DFS. We've got it all coming up for you at fantasyguru.com tomorrow, same time, same place, same channel, Fantasy Sports Daily. Ray Flowers right here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by Fantasy Guru.